Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I hope you're all doing okay. It's me, Cal, your personal pocket-sized lawyer, and today I'm going to teach you how to legally fight eviction and keep your home. So if you're ready, let's get straight into it. Now look, whether you win or lose against an eviction notice will depend entirely on how well you know your rights and how prepared you are when the time comes. Tens of thousands of people are losing their homes each year because they lack the legal firepower and the legal know-how to fight back. Plus, look, with record high rents and a cost of living crisis out there, more tenants than ever are at risk of losing their homes. You may not think it could happen to you, but it could. Local councils last year issued over 36,000 eviction orders. But guys, look, listen to me very closely when I say this to you. You have rights and you have powers to stop this process. You don't need to hire an expensive lawyer to do it all for you. You just need to listen closely to the advice I'm about to give you today. I'm going to explain all of your rights, how to successfully challenge an eviction notice, how to negotiate with your landlord, and should you ever end up in court, the best procedure to follow. And I'll do it all in just under 9 minutes, so pay attention and let's get started. Now, before we begin, guys, look, I will never at any point ask any of you to subscribe to my channel, only that you give me a chance to earn it from you with the content that I produce. So if at the end of this video you feel like you've learned something or anything of value, then please feel free to do so, as I'd love to keep making these educational videos for people. Okay, so the eviction process. First, you need to understand how eviction happens in the UK, whether you are renting from a private landlord under an AST or whether you're renting from the council, for example. So when the eviction notice comes through the door, the very first thing to do, guys, is read the paperwork carefully, because there are different types of eviction notice and it matters what kind of notice you've received. If you're renting from a private landlord, there are two main types of eviction notices that you might be getting. The first is a Section 21 notice. You've probably heard of this. This is a no-fault eviction. The landlord does not need to give you a reason. They simply just want possession of the property back. Then we have the Section 8 fault-based notice. Now, the Section 8 notice is used when the landlord claims that you've broken one of the terms of your tenancy agreement, like not paying rent or damaging the property or antisocial behaviour, etc. If you're renting from the council, however, the process is slightly different. They usually serve you with what's called a notice seeking possession. This will tell you the reason they want to evict you, for example, rent arrears or antisocial behaviour, and how long you have to respond. And guys, look, as a warning, if you have got your notice there and you're not sure what it means, my advice would be to get help, seek help immediately. Don't wait. Contact Shelter, the charity, or Citizens Advice for clarity on which one it is. So then your first action, guys, must always be to check which section your landlord is using, because that determines your next step. Section 21 is tricky to challenge on the grounds of dispute, but Section 8 gives you more routes to push back. Okay, so now you know how the eviction process is done in the UK. Your second step is to check the validity of your eviction notice. Now, guys, let me be very plain. A shocking number of landlords, both private and social, get the procedure wrong and invalidate their eviction notices. So your next step must always be to perform the correct checks on that eviction notice. Now, let's take private landlords first. So the Section 21 notice as an example. For a Section 21 notice to be valid, if you receive one of those, your deposit must have been protected in a government-approved scheme. That's the first requirement. And you must have received the prescribed information. You must also have been given, on the start of your tenancy, a gas safety certificate, an energy performance certificate, and a copy of the How to Rent guide. Guys, these are all requirements for a valid eviction notice. The notice must give you at least 2 months notice as well in writing. It cannot be shorter than 2 months, and notices must be served correctly. They must be hand delivered or posted to you. Finally, it must not be served within the first 4 months of your tenancy. So if your landlord hasn't followed any of these rules, write them down. That eviction notice might be invalid, and if it's invalid, they cannot evict you unless they serve a fresh notice, guys. This can give you way more time. Now, I also want to talk to you about council evictions, guys, if that's you. Even council evictions must follow a strict procedure. They can't just decide to evict you. They need to give you a valid reason under the Housing Act, and they need to follow proper pre-action protocols for social landlords, which includes trying to resolve the issue with you before going to court. They have to try to resolve the issue with you before they take you to court. If your notice is not valid, you've got more time and probably a defense. So the action point then is to go through this checklist. If you find any of these flaws in your eviction notice, you can write back to your landlord and say that the notice is invalid and ask them to withdraw it. And remember, always keep copies of your letters, guys, and proof of posted. Documentation your best friend here. Okay, so by now you should know what? You should know how the eviction process is done in the UK and how to challenge the validity of your eviction notice. Now we need to look at, if the notice is valid, how can you defend against it? So the first step should always be to negotiate with your landlord. And again, you really don't need a lawyer for this, guys, unless you're really struggling to do it alone. So if you receive a valid notice, here is how to try and resolve it early. Oh, and let me make one thing very plain. Whatever you do, do not ignore the letters, guys. That is the quickest way to get a court date. Do not ignore them. Deal with them early. So number one, open a dialogue with your landlord. Politely ask them to explain the reasons and see if there is a way to address their concerns. Catch up on rent arrears, for example, with like a payment plan that you can agree, or agree to some minor repairs, or maybe agree to find a replacement tenant. Many landlords would prefer an arrangement over going through a very costly and very slow court process. If you live in a council or a housing association property, guys, if that's you, then they are legally obligated to try and help you before going to court, like I previously mentioned. And that includes offering support with budgeting or referring you to a support service. And next, if there is a dispute between you and your landlord, which is leading to the eviction, you should try to suggest mediation. So mediation is really great. So with mediation, you can get free or low cost mediators to broker a solution between you and your landlord. And courts can even offer free mediation, guys. Finally, as a last resort to negotiation, if you are struggling, is to seek the help of a charity or citizens advice to help you negotiate, and they may even intervene on your behalf. It is worth a try, guys, if you are struggling to negotiate with the landlord yourself. So your third action point then, what is it? It must be to open a dialogue very early with your landlord. Negotiation shows the courts that you've acted reasonably, and the courts love that. If all else fails, you have evidence to the court that you gave your landlord every single chance to avoid that legal action. Try a mediator, like I said, or a charity to help you negotiate. Now, quickly, guys, before we move on to how to defend yourself in court, there is one very important tip that I have for people to defend against a landlord who has failed in their repair obligations. If you're being evicted, but your landlord hasn't been holding up their side of the deal, in other words, your landlord has ignored their repair obligations for the property, or ignored your complaints about the state of the property, like mold, leaks, broken heating, etc., well, you may be able to show that your landlord is evicting you because you're complaining. This is called retaliatory eviction. It is them trying to evict you because you've been complaining about their lack of repair duties, guys, and this is an illegal retaliatory eviction. Now, guys, look, if negotiation doesn't work, you can go to court. If your case does end up going to court, don't panic. You might be able to defend yourself successfully or delay the process significantly. As for the court hearing itself, you should bring all of your evidence. Guys, write this down. Bring all of your evidence, the letters, the receipts, photos of the disrepair, expert witness statements, and most importantly, any proof you have that the notice is invalid or illegal in any way that I explained earlier. As for time to remedy the breaches, look, many judges grant suspended possession orders, which will give you a lot more time. If you have children, by the way, or vulnerable dependents, you should highlight personal hardship to the courts. The courts have a duty to consider human rights when making their decisions. Now, guys, listen closely. If you do end up going to court, here is what a judge might consider in your defense. Write these down. Number one, that the eviction notice is invalid, like we discussed before. Number two, that you're up to date with your rent payments now. Number three, that you've made reasonable attempts to repay those arrears. Number four, that the landlord has failed to maintain the property, as I said earlier, with their repair obligations, or the council, for example, didn't follow the proper protocols of social landlords. Now, look, guys, that you can represent yourself in court, but if possible, try and get legal representation. I know it's expensive. And remember, legal aid can be available to you if your financial situation is dire. And guys, look, see this video here that I made for an incredible 8-minute video on how to get legal advice and representation when you cannot afford it. It's linked here and in the description down below. Okay, so by now you should know how the eviction process is done, how to check the validity of your eviction notice, how to negotiate with your landlord, and finally, if it does go to court, how to prepare for court hearings. Now, guys, very importantly, there are a few very important final tips which I must leave you with before you go, which I hope will be slight glimmers of hope in what can be a very difficult time. Look, number one, eviction cases can take months. It is not an overnight process, guys. Don't worry about being pushed out of your house in a matter of days. The whole process can take many, many months in my experience. Also, courts and councils have duties to treat tenants fairly, especially if you have vulnerable children or vulnerable people in there, like I said. Also, suspension orders, payment plans, and homelessness duties exist to protect you. You are not alone. Help is out there from charities like Shelter, as I mentioned, free legal clinics and government services, Citizens Advice, for example. Now, guys, I'd really love to hear from any of you who have or are experiencing eviction proceedings. Your landlord is threatening eviction. What is your experiences of the process? What has worked for you? Let's get a discussion going down in the comments. Guys, if you have liked or taken anything of value from this video I've made, don't forget to subscribe. I put a lot of effort into teaching people their basic legal rights, and I'd love to continue to do that. Remember though, this content is educational, is not a substitute for personalized legal advice. That said, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.